Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Whitetail Guy podcast. I am your host, William Drahan. So good to have you with us. We're going to take a topic up that a lot of people have asked me over the years about because most hunters hunt on small properties. Now, 20, 40, 60 acres, 100 acres to me is a small property. Now, there's places that you may hunt maybe 1,000 acres, or 1,500 or 4 or 5 or 600. But I'm going to talk about small properties. Let me take a sip of water here real quick before I get to waxing eloquently. If this is the first time you've seen me and have not followed me on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, then you may not know that my properties from Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, and then my son has a property in Kansas. I didn't get drawn this year. But all those properties are 90 acres or less. 90 acres or less. Our smallest being 20 acres, which is one of the best properties that we have at the right time of the year. So if you are a hunter and you have a small property, you either own or lease it or hunt it, the first and most important thing is that you have to identify what kind of property it is. Is it a travel corridor property? Is it a property, no matter the size, if it's 20, 30, 40, 80, 100, even I guess we can call maybe 120 acres small, depending on how many hunters you've got. And we'll cover that in just a second. So you've got to know, is it a travel corridor property? There's not a lot of deer residing, but they use my property to get from point A to point B and back. The 20 acres that we lease, that's what that is. There's not a whole lot of deer residing year-round. I mean, they come and pass through 12 months out of the year, but it is a giant travel corridor during the seek and chase phase. We don't even go in there until about October 28th and hunt it off and on the month of November. It's that great. I mean, we're going to get pictures of deer we've never seen before, and then we'll get pictures of deer that we have a history of because they're trying to get from one block of woods, big block of woods, I think it's 300 or 400 acres, and another 200 or 300 acres. Now, there's ag all the way around. The property has a lot of white oaks and red oaks, which is very, very important if you're going to keep deer, reside deer. But you've got to identify it. You've got to know, hey, man, the deer in here for a little bit, or they just move in when the white oaks drop and then they evacuate because I don't have any kill plots or food plots planted. There's no ag around. But it seems like, and I've had this question many, many times posed to me, my deer are here in September and October, and in the middle of October or so, they disappear. Well, it's probably because the white oaks have been ate or didn't produce as much as you had hoped, and now they've gone. I said this statement 1,000 times and probably will say it 10,000 more times, that the white-tailed deer is driven by his stomach. Number one, does 12 months out of the year, the instinct that God gave them was to survive. They have to survive. It's in their instinct to procreate, to raise, and to continue to live, however years that is, whether they get taken out by an automobile or a hunter or disease or a predator. A buck's, his main focus is on food about 10 and a half months out of the year. So if you've got to know as the season changes, whether it's spring, summer, early fall, late fall, winter, where the preferred food is, because that is where the deer are going to be. And that's another topic for another day. And I've made so many videos on TikTok and Facebook and even Instagram about this, but I'm sure I'll do a podcast on that. Probably call it knowing your whitetail throughout the year. But is it a travel corridor? Now, the only times I see deer come in my property, whether it's 10 acres, 7 acres, 20 acres, 30, 40 acres, is it a main travel corridor? When I look at a property, whether it's on a land consultation or it's one I'm going to hunt, I just don't focus on the property I'm hunting. I'm looking at the adjoining properties, what available food's there, what's the available covers, there are water sources there. Why are they going through my property to get to that property? And why are they coming from this property to get to that property? So if you have a travel corridor property, you're only going to be able to hunt it and be successful certain times of the year, especially during the seek and chase phase, and that is spread out. There's better seek and chase phases, and then does come into estrus. If you follow me for any length of time, 10% of your does are going to come in early estrus, then 80%, which is typically here in the Midwest sometime in November, what a lot of hunters will call lockdown, and then a week or so later, your last 10%. So actually the rut is spread out over a month. It's the way God designed it so that there will be a continuation of the next generation, because you may have a bad spring, you may have an early spring with snow, especially in the Midwest and Northeast, so that the fawns are dropping at certain times to ensure the next generation. So if I can't plant any kill plots, there's not a whole lot of ag around, but I have a lot of white oaks, then you could probably hunt that in the early part of the season. If it's a travel corridor, they're just kind of coming in there, and white oaks only are good about 2 weeks on them. Once they fall to the ground, they can rot very, very quick, and that's why the whitetail are on them so hard and fast, and then when they're gone, the whitetail are gone. Now, if it's a travel corridor where the bucks are utilizing from seeking and chasing does from this block of woods, they come through your block of the woods to get to a higher doe population, it's a great place to hunt the last week of October, first week or so in November here in the Midwest and Northeast. Now, there's travel corridors, no matter where you hunt. If it's the Southeast, if it's the Deep South, if it's the Lower Midwest, Upper Midwest, Northeast, you as a hunter, to be a successful hunter, you need to learn, and that's through observation, through whether it's trail cameras, from tree stand observations. You've got to observe, you've got to interpret, and then you've got to react. So you may have that type of property. A lot of guys overestimate their property, and thus they get frustrated and get discouraged because they see the horn stars doing this, that, the other. You can't do that. You've got to base it on what you have. You've got to take advantage and recognize the type of property you have. Now, if your property is, like I said, all my properties are 90 acres or less. On that 20 acres, we can't plant any kill plots. It's just the landowner won't allow it, and it's really hard to do because it's more hilly, a lot of creeks and stuff like that. We can't even plant a kill plot. But I have smaller properties like 40 acres here and 40 acres here where the landowners have allowed us in cleared out areas plant kill plots. And I talked about that on the podcast last week, talking about food plot preparation. You'll have fall food plot preparation. So you have to kind of go back and look at that podcast. Now, if you have a property where there is a pretty high residential deer herd residing, whether it's 40 acres, whether it's 60, 80, 100, 150, or whatever, then you've got to figure out how you're going to hunt that property. Now, I tell my consultation clients, I've told followers for years, that you need to learn to hunt the outside in at the beginning of the season. And then as the seek and chase phase, the rut, then you can go in and start hunting the interior, and knowing where your travel corridors, and there's several travel corridors on your property. I guarantee it. So to hunt a small property, let's say, okay, we've gone to the travel corridor property. We talked about that. You've got to identify it, and you got to know what time of the year to hunt it. You're like, well, I don't want to hear that. I want to put in 30, 45, 50 days in the deer stand. If you got a small property and it's nothing but a travel corridor, that's going to be very, very difficult. Now, if you have a small property, there's no food or whatever, the deer are very scattered, but you have white oaks, and then your deer by your cameras and from your tree stand observations, that when they start dropping, you're in there. That's when you need to move in and kill the deer that you're after. But if your property is large enough, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 150, whatever, if it's large enough that you can implement some land management, if you own it or the landowner gives you permission, you've got to put strategically placed water holes. And I've done I'll probably do a podcast on that because I get that questions a whole lot. I love water holes. I love hunting over water holes. They're great in the early season. It's really great during the seek and chase phase, especially on those warmer November days where the bucks are really on their feet a lot. They're walking around now with a winter coat. To avoid getting overheated, they go to water. And they also not only go there for themselves, they go there to scent check any does that were there, the day before or a couple hours before. So I love water holes. But there is a strategy in putting your food plots on small properties. Number one is access. You got to be able to know, again, this is observation interpretation. When your deer come to your food plot, where did they come from and where are they going once they leave? Okay? So there are some of our leases we can't hunt in the morning until the rut because we know if we go there in the morning, the deer are going to be there. No matter if we get an hour before first light and get in there, we're going to blow deer out and we're going to hurt ourselves. There's some stands we can't hunt in the afternoons because it's a better morning. We can kind of get in there and intercept them as they come off the ag. But in the afternoons, if we try to get in there, it's more of a bedding area. I mean, we risk the chance of spooking deer just trying to get to our stands. And that's even hunting what I've said earlier, hunting on the exterior. I think guys overhunt their properties, not by overhunting too much, which that can happen. I believe hunters overhunt their property by hunting at the wrong places at the wrong times because they're so anxious to put a tag on a deer. And so they risk, the reward by going into the inner sanctum when they shouldn't be. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this. This is my 49th year of whitetail hunting, that deer will allow more intrusions during the seek and chase phase. Does are getting run everywhere. They're snorting. Now, I've seen them snort at bucks because they're sick and tired of it, especially the smaller bucks, of chasing them. So they're already on edge. So it's nothing uncommon to have does be very spooky and snort at bucks during the seek and chase phase because they're getting worn out, man. They're getting tired every time they go to a white oak or whether they go to a clover field or they go to a soybean field or if they go to a brassica field, that they're constantly getting chased. But during that seek and chase phase, is the risk worth the reward by you making an inner intrusion? So you've got to figure out where your deer are going and where they're coming off of in the morning, where they're going when they leave your food plot in the morning, where they're headed to predominantly. Or even in the afternoon, they may come in an hour or two before dark, they may feed out there, and then right at dusk, they will head out to the ag fields or another food plot. So you got to know, hey, I can't hunt this stand in the afternoon because they're going to hang around. This is kind of their final destinations. Now, during the rut, I will take that chance if I'm going to hunt a secluded food plot because that may be the only opportunity I get to kill my target buck because he's really coming out here to this secluded food plot to seek and chase and scrape. And so, again, is the risk worth the reward? So setting up your food plot, I set up early season food plots, and I set in on the properties I lease where I'm able, plots that I know I can hunt the last week in October and the month of November, where I can get in and get out with the least amount of disturbance, and that I know that it gets a lot of action. And they tend to be kind of in the center of the property, not necessarily because I may have 150 acres of woods where they spend a lot of time they're bedding and the travel corridors here, so the food plot's here. So I know once they visit my food plot that they're going to exit out maybe to the ag field. So if setting up your property on your small acreage is it is vital to success. Food, where you put your tree stands. Again, we talked about that on the podcast. Knowing your prevailing winds. We know here in the Midwest and Northeast when a cold front blows through, it's from the north, northeast, northwest. On the warmer fronts, it's from the south. Sometimes, though, when in between cold fronts and warm fronts, is it a southwest wind? Is it a west wind? Is it kind of a southwest wind? Is it a kind of a northwest wind? So you kind of got to do some research and find out what your prevailing winds. That's what's going to save you accessing your stand, as well as allowing the deer to get close enough so that you can take it with a bow and arrow. So your food plot strategies, and listen, I'm going to give you the best advice. Do not put everything in one spot. Don't put your mineral lick if it's legal. Don't put your water hole right here. Don't put your food plot right here. And don't put your community scrape right in one spot, because what's going to happen after 3 or 4 or 5 times, if you're going in and out and you have to blow deer because everything's right there, you're going to eventually see the deer not coming around that area until way past last light. So I like setting up properties where I have my deer dancing on the property that I'm hunting, or if it's a consultation client, as well as I want to take advantage of those travel corridors. Where do most of my deer access my property to my neighbors, and my neighbors' deer access mine? You also got to remember, just because you have 90 acres don't mean that one buck or the bucks you like are going to reside on the whole 90. I've seen this years. I've got some bucks that will only stay on the north end. I've got some bucks that will stay on the south end. I've got some bucks, again, this is the buck's personality. I've seen some bucks just reside on the 90 and make minor excursions to the neighbor's property. Again, personality, availability of food, human pressure. All those things come into play, and they are vital to your success, you that are hunting small properties. So setting up your properties is the key, making sure that you can hunt. Hey, I know I can't hunt my favorite food plot, but I do have deer on this east side, and I need to set up, okay, I can't hunt the one on the west side, but the wind's really great, and you've got to set up your stands accordingly, especially if you want to hunt certain hot plots, I call them, where you get the most deer traffic, but you got to set it up where the wind is to your advantage, where the wind is blowing from the deer to you. Now, do I use ozonics? Sure. They sponsor me? No. But I love ozonics because it's not the end all of end all. I take scent showers. In other words, I wash my hair, my beard, everything about me. I scentless soap. All my clothes are washed in scentless laundry detergent. And they stay in a scent-free bag. I don't put them on until I get to the hunting site. And you got to protect your boots. What drives me crazy is watching hunters just go into a gas station with their hunting clothes and their hunting boots, and you are just laying down, grabbing scent that you're going to put down once you walk in the woods and once you're setting up in your deer stand. So I take care of all those things. The ozonics or any other ozone maker, generator, or whatever, it protects me just in case. Let's give a case in point. The wind's in my favor. I know the deer come out in front of me, so they're not going to smell me unless they get behind me. Let's say there's 3 or 4 does, where the buck I want to shoot is out on the other end. He's watching them does, he's watching them, and he gets a little too close, and now all those does swing out and get behind me, and now I'm downwind. I risked the chance of them smelling me, and if they snort or acting nervous, you know what's going to happen. He's going to key on them. And so the ozonics is like an extra insurance policy, but I'm always knowing where my expectations of where the deer are going to come from, where they're going to feed at, and the wind is going to be to my advantage. But they're wild animals, man. They're not like the horn stars want to tell you. If you make this and make that, you'll have 200-inch deer. That's bullshit. It ain't going to happen. I promise you, it ain't going to happen. But if you do your homework, if you start observing and interpreting and then reacting by stand placement and not burning out food plots or white oak grove or an apple orchard or wherever you want to hunt, by saying, I'm not going in there, the wind is too chancy. I just know them deer are going to probably smell me, and I'm going to ruin the stand for a day or two. So you can hunt small properties. You can hunt small properties. I have. And I love small properties. I thrive on that. My pocketbook thrives on that. But again, as we wind this podcast down, as I said before, when you look at your property and you got your water hole, your community scrapes, your travel corridors, you got a food plot here and a food plot here. If it's legal, you got a mineral lake here and the such. I know that if I do my very best at interpreting what the deer are going to do and not chancing it, I have a really good opportunity that I'm going to shoot maybe a nice buck, or at least see one, or have that opportunity to take one. But you can kill nice deer. You can grow big deer. Again, I understand we all have had bad neighbors. I've had bad neighbors, but I always put my confidence into the whitetail. If he's made it to 3 years old, there's a great chance he may not. He might make it to 4 and 5, maybe. But that's on you. As I've always said, you shoot what makes you happy. Whatever makes you happy, man. If it's a spike, if it's a doe, if it's a 2-year-old, hey, whatever weapon you want to use, okay? I don't care. I'm responsible for me. If it's legal, you like it, whether it's a longbow, a recurve, a compound, a crossbow, whatever weapon, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. And no matter what size buck you want to shoot, you shoot what makes you happy. But if you're serious about taking your property to the next level, if you take these few things and we go into, you can take it deeper. This is just like a little skeleton of things that you can implement on your property. That's why people hire me to come in and set their properties up so that they can be successful. But again, what I want to say is remember, guys, just don't look at your 20, your 7, your 10, your 120. Look at the other properties on whether it's OnX or whatever, HuntStand, whatever app you're using, and try to figure out as you get intel from the stand or from a trail camera, what are these deer doing? Why are they moving through here? Why are they leaving my property going over here? And like I said, they're not always going to use your whole property. They're just not. I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, man, I've got a funny story. There's 190 acres, got a gas line, and I got cameras in travel corridors, on community scrapes, and food plots, and everything else. There's just some bucks that will only utilize 1/4 of that 90 acres. Some will use the whole 90. Some will just use the southwest side. And I don't know. Like I said, they're wild animals, man. They're just wild animals. But you can be successful with the right thing. Access, recognizing what type of property you have, hunting it at the right time, hunting the right thing that's happening in the whitetail woods. That's the beautiful thing about the whitetail. It's always changing. Spring, summer, early fall, late fall, winter. It's always changing. And we, as hunters, have to understand that, observe, interpret, and react. Thank you so much. Be sure you like, comment, share all my content. If you are viewing this on YouTube, you can go and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, The Whitetail Guy. As I always say, I will be right here next time you come back. Boo!